exploring what those options outside of Milwaukee look like. Plenty of natural, substantive conversations that are going to be taking place here. The season is in jeopardy next year with that Achilles tear. So
the very thing that we've been prophesizing on this YouTube channel for the past year is finally coming to fruition. And although some Milwaukee Bucks fans might be in denial about Giannis Antetokounmpo finally deciding to leave the Milwaukee Bucks, the writing is definitely on the wall. So before we get to the content, we just uploaded a brand new video on our baseball channel, Uni Diamond Talk. I'm gonna leave a link to it in the end screen. If you guys are into baseball, you can check it out after this video. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. We've been incredible to start the playoffs, hitting on 3 picks to make over $400, and it's gonna get better from here. Use my promo code microphone to get $50 when you make a play of $5 or more on Prize Picks, or just click on the link in the description down below and get my picks through my Instagram at TheFlightMike. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I have to give credit where credit's due. The Milwaukee Bucks did absolutely everything in their power to ensure that Giannis Antetokounmpo would stay on their roster for as long as humanly possible. Remember, in 2020, when Giannis Antetokounmpo was up for a contract extension, the Milwaukee Bucks made a huge trade for Jrue Holiday. Trade that saw the Milwaukee Bucks dealing away 3 future first-round picks and 2 additional draft pick swaps in order to get Jrue Holiday and Sam Merrill. 1 year later, they won an NBA championship, but despite that, Giannis Antetokounmpo wasted no time in saying that his future might not be in Milwaukee. Famously saying that one challenge was to bring a championship here, and we did. It was very hard, but we did. Very, very hard. I just love challenges. What's the next challenge? Well, the next challenge might not be here. It's not that I don't love Milwaukee. Me and my family chose to stay in this city that we all love and has taken care of us for now. In 2 years, that might change. I'm being totally honest with you. I'm always honest. I love this city, I love this community, and I want to help as much as possible. Fortunately for the Milwaukee Bucks, they had a fairly successful season during the 2021-22 season, finishing 3rd in the Eastern Conference and losing in the semifinals in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. But things would start to go downhill from there. During the 2023 season, they would finish 1st in the Eastern Conference, but Giannis Antetokounmpo would have injuries right during the time for the playoffs, and the Milwaukee Bucks would lose to the Miami Heat in the first round in 5 games. So this caused a bit of a panic for the Milwaukee Bucks. Following that season, they fired their head coach, Mike Budenholzer. Giannis Antetokounmpo was heavily involved in the hiring of their next coach, Adrian Griffin, and they swung a huge blockbuster trade for Damian Lillard, essentially depleting themselves of any future assets until the 2031 NBA draft. They would fire Adrian Griffin in the middle of the season and hire Doc Rivers, who seemed very happy about getting the opportunity to take the job.
I'll be honest, I told our owners when they called, I said, I don't understand why you're doing this. One of the things they said was, well, it doesn't matter. We've done it now, and we want you.
But unfortunately, the Bucks would get injured once again for the 2024 playoffs, losing in the first round to the Indiana Pacers in 6 games. So during this past season, they tried to tinker with the roster even more. They traded away Chris Middleton and AJ Johnson for Kyle Kuzma in hopes that maybe Kyle Kuzma would be more available during the playoffs. They took a flyer on Kevin Porter Jr. They hired Darvin Ham, and Darvin Ham brought his favorite player in the NBA, Taurean Prince, as well, and the result was once again losing to the Indiana Pacers in 5 games in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Damian Lillard had blood clots right before the NBA playoffs. He miraculously was able to return 3 weeks after, but during the first round of the playoffs, he would tear his Achilles tendon, meaning Damian Lillard is going to be out for the 2025 to 2026 season. Once he returns, he's going to be a shell of his former self. The Milwaukee Bucks no longer have any assets to improve the team alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they're stuck paying a player that is out for the 2025 to 26 season a super maximum contract. So it's no wonder why Giannis Antetokounmpo is evaluating his future outside of Milwaukee, and Shams even said so himself.
Greeny, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 2-time NBA MVP, he has not made any firm decisions about his future. He is open-minded about whether his best fit is in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere, and is it sensible for him to potentially leave? And we've known over the last several years, Giannis Antetokounmpo has been very open-minded. His goal is to win a championship.
Look, at the same time, this isn't Giannis Antetokounmpo just wanting to leave the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks would be foolish if they kept Giannis Antetokounmpo on the roster at this point. There's absolutely no point in keeping him on the roster because the Bucks, at best, will be a play-in team with Giannis Antetokounmpo staying on the team. You may as well trade him for high-end draft picks to a team that is near contention, and there are a number of teams that come to mind. All the teams that I'm going to mention could either provide the Milwaukee Bucks with a player that they could build around for the foreseeable future, or on the cusp of making it to the NBA playoffs. So according to Shams Charania, two-time NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo has not made any firm decisions, but for the first time in his career, he is open-minded about whether his best fit is remaining in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere, sources told ESPN. Now, a lot of these teams are still in the NBA playoffs, and whether or not they trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo has to do with the way they finish in the NBA playoffs. Take, for instance, the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC has won 68 games this past year, but they're currently locked into a heated series with the Denver Nuggets, who literally have Nikola Jokic as their head coach. This team is young, exciting, has plenty of future first-round picks. I mean, really, they have a lot of first-round picks. They have 13 first-round picks and 17 second-round picks over the next 7 years. They can include Isaiah Hartenstein, Aaron Wiggins, and Cason Wallace as well in order to bring in a former MVP that has won an NBA championship to team up with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Could you imagine how terrifying the front court of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chet Holmgren would be if this trade was to get done? But I would personally say that this would only happen if the OKC Thunder lost to the Denver Nuggets in the second round of the NBA playoffs. If they make it to the Western Conference Finals, they may decide that they have enough to run it back to potentially get over the hump for next year. Another team that could potentially trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo is a team that has been in many rumors for other superstars in the NBA that got knocked out a little bit earlier than they were hoping in the NBA playoffs. The Houston Rockets have some very valuable draft picks coming up, including Phoenix's first round pick this year, the right to swap their pick with Brooklyn's first round pick in 2027, and Phoenix's first round pick in 2027 as well. 3 of these picks could without a doubt be lottery picks in the foreseeable future, and at the same time, the Rockets have the ability to be very aggressive if they wanted to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. If the Rockets wanted to be aggressive, they could dangle Amin Thompson in front of the Milwaukee Bucks. Alperen Şengün could potentially be traded with his contract increasing to $34 million next season. Fred VanVleet has a $44 million team option. They could also give up Jabari Smith and Cam Whitmore and even potentially trade Jalen Green. Now, I'm not saying all these players will get traded for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but the Houston Rockets certainly have options. But I don't think there's a single team in the NBA that has a better chance of trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo than the San Antonio Spurs. This is a team that has been on record saying that they're checking in on a potential Giannis Antetokounmpo trade. Going into the NBA draft lottery, the San Antonio Spurs had the 8th best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. And personally, if they won that number 1 overall pick, I would have expected them to keep Cooper Flag on the roster, but since they didn't win the number 1 overall pick, they now have a very valuable draft pick that they would probably be more likely to trade as opposed to retain themselves. Not only that, they have 2 lottery picks in this year's NBA draft, so the San Antonio Spurs can make a Godfather-like offer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. They could trade the number 2 overall pick and the number 13 overall pick, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, over to the Milwaukee Bucks in return for Giannis Antetokounmpo. This would give the Bucks a young core to build around for the foreseeable future, and it would give the San Antonio Spurs one of the most terrifying front courts in the NBA and a terrifying big 3 of Victor Wembanyama, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and De'Aaron Fox. And this big 3 would be different than other big 3s because Victor Wembanyama is still on his rookie scale contract. I would potentially say the New York Knicks are an option as well if they're willing to part ways with Karl Anthony Towns, but a lot of that depends on whether or not they're able to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, or potentially the NBA Finals. I can't imagine the New York Knicks making a significant trade if their team is strong enough to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. At the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that this trade is happening no matter what, because it would do more harm than good for the Milwaukee Bucks to hold on to Giannis Antetokounmpo for the foreseeable future. They need to trade him now and start a rebuild as opposed to holding on to their star player for way too long and getting nothing in return for him and also being irrelevant until the 2030 30s. This rebuild needs to begin immediately. The Bucks did a great job putting a contender around Giannis Antetokounmpo, but in my opinion, it's time to move on. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.